EP. So you can follow us there. Also, we're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF, and we're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. WFDF's Facebook page also. Okay, so on today's show, we're going to be joined in a couple minutes here by Asar Imhotep. And Asar Imhotep is featured in the film Hapi, which deals with the role of economics in development of civilization. And he's going to be here in Detroit for the One Africa Power and Unity Conference that's coming up in Detroit at the Doubletree Hotel Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st. And I'll be there as well. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, who we had on the show last night. Professor Small will be here also. Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Dr. Jeffries' wife, and many others. So Asar Imhotep is going to, his presentation at the conference is going to be on linguistics as a tool for ancestral memory recovery and intellectual warfare. Linguistics as a tool for ancestral memory recovery and intellectual warfare. We're going to talk about this and talk a little bit about the conference as well. Okay, we'll give you information about how you can register for the conference. Then also, as I said today, it didn't snow here in Detroit, so that's a good thing because yesterday, Monday, looked like a blizzard here in Detroit. Some of you may have heard Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show today, Keeping It Real, that broadcasts right here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. I mean, not 11 p.m. That's when I'm on. It broadcasts Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Keeping It Real. I called into his radio show today. I usually don't do that, but I called in because some of the we were talking about politics and the George Floyd Justice of Policing Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the also the Freedom to Vote Act, and I had to correct him on a couple of things because he knew it, but it's just the way he was saying it wasn't accurate. So some of you all heard that, and if you heard that, you can give us a call as well. So very interesting. He agreed with everything I had to say also as well. So that's a good thing. And then earlier today at 10:30 a.m., there was a press conference. Let me know when we have Asar on the phone, please, Shakita. Earlier today, there was a press conference that the family attorneys for Patrick Lyoya had. And they had an independent autopsy. And Patrick Lyoya killed April 4th, 2022 by a Grand Rapids police officer, Grand Rapids, Michigan police officer. And the independent autopsy confirms that what we had been told and pretty much gathered from the video, it confirms that Patrick Lyoya was shot in the back of the head. And they revealed some new details today also at the press conference. So we're going to share an excerpt of that press conference today and give you an update on what's taking place in that investigation as well. Now, in the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so we're going to have Asar Imhotep on in just a minute. He's featured in the documentary Hapi, The Role of Economics in Development of Civilization. And you can visit his website as well, which is asarimhotep.com. But he is a software developer, cultural theorist, and Africana researcher from Houston, Texas. Whose research focus is the cultural, linguistic, and philosophical links between the ancient Egyptian civilizations and modern Bantu cultures of Central and South Africa. Modern Bantu cultures of Central and South Africa. You know, we've talked about the Bantu numerous times here on this show. He is currently continuing his education in computer science with a concentration in artificial intelligence. We want to welcome to the African History Network show for the first time, but not the last, Asar Imhotep. How you doing today, brother Hotep?
Hotep, peace and blessings. I'm doing well, and happy to be here. Our conversation today.
All right, excellent. Are you on a speakerphone?
No, I'm not.
Okay, you're on the Bluetooth.
You hear an echo?
Yeah, I was hearing the echo, and it sounds. I guess it sounds a little better now, because Bluetooth and speakerphones don't work well for radio. But okay, all right. So,
okay, well, let me do this.
Okay.
Because I am on Bluetooth.
Okay.
So let me switch.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get you situated. And once again. Okay, no problem. And once again, everybody, and we're going to have this information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. The conference is taking place Saturday, April 30th through Sunday, May 1st at the Doubletree Hotel, 525 West Lafayette Boulevard in Detroit. Asar Imhotep, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Professor Kabahai Watakaman. They will be doing a presentation as well. Dr. Mawulana Karenga will be doing a presentation. So we're going to post a link here. You can register for the conference. If you cannot attend in person, you can live stream the event. They have a ticket to live stream the event also. So, Brother Asar, first off, explain to people what is a cultural theorist. You are a cultural theorist and Africana researcher. Explain to people what that is.
Yes, I have taken it upon myself to really kind of research the inner depths of psychology of culture.
Okay.
Looking at the issues of, the evolution and development of African American people as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust.
Right.
And I've come to the conclusion, as well as many other scholars, that, the cultural issue is one of the biggest issues that we have. And so I've been looking into how to develop culture from scratch. What are its basic elements? And just to theorize and practice on, creating and developing and architecting, if I can say, the elements of culture that we will want to survive in the future to help African American people to thrive. So I look, of course, into African cultures, looking at the spirit and the base of what makes them work, and just cultures around the world, right. What culture is supposed to do, and to think about and create, models that hopefully we can emulate in the future. And so that's what we mean ultimately by like a cultural theorist. Okay. And then, of course, the Africana researcher. I'm an Africologist. So, I study the African-centered, an African-centered study of African history, phenomena, culture, language, psychology, religion, and the like.
Okay, so Africology being because different schools, have different departments. So like at Wayne State, they had an Africana Studies department. So when I was in Wayne State back in the early 90s, they had an Africana Studies department. So I took classes there. You have some schools that have a Black Studies department. You have some schools that have Africology. Okay, so Africology it sounds like it's more precise, the study of African history from an African-centered perspective. Is that a correct interpretation of it?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
So an Afrocentric perspective. The Africans are subjects of their own reality, and kind of focused on the perspective of the African people themselves as not being acted upon by history, but as actors and shapers and agents of history.
Okay, yeah, and that's more on the line of how Dr. Carter G. Woodson perceived history and taught history, especially through his books and through SALA, Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which became Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And I could tell. Oh, you about to say something? Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. I was just saying that
I could tell a difference in the history classes when I had to take a medieval history class in the out of the history department to fulfill a requirement, a history requirement at Wayne State. So it was taught by like a white British woman, and it was not African centered at all. And I think the only thing they talked about the Moors was Othello by Shakespeare. Okay, to play Othello. Okay, but when I took my Africana studies classes at Wayne State's Africana Studies department, it was a whole different vibe. It was much different. Okay, even though it was a little watered down, it was much different. All right. Absolutely. And then when we talk about okay, we're coming up on a break. When we come back from the break, I want you to explain what your presentation is going to be about linguistics as a tool for ancestry memory, recovery, and intellectual warfare. So stand by, Asar. We'll be back in a few minutes. Everybody, listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. Our guest is Asar Imhotep, who's a cultural theorist and Africana researcher, no relation to me. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, and you can register for the conference. I'm going to post a link here. Asar will be speaking there. I'll be at the conference also. I'll be a vendor. I may be on a panel. I'm not sure yet. P presents One Africa Power and Unity Conference. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I just posted the link there. Stand by. We'll be back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, also you can support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show. We're celebrating our 12th year anniversary of me broadcasting the African History Network show. The first started March 10th, 2022, March 10th, 2010. And we have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. Now we have a class number 1 of my 10-week online course starts up Saturday, April 23rd. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understands Atlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. If you've been waiting to jump in with class number 1, that starts up Saturday, April 23rd, 10-week online course. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Back from break in 1 minute. Class is on sale, $80, regularly $130. Stand by. We'll post a link here for that also. But it's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com.
On the African History Network show, we deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And today was a good day because it did not snow here in Detroit. Like, what a difference a day makes, because yesterday it looked like a blizzard. Hey, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, etc. We have the information right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we have the link there also. Okay, and we're celebrating our 12th year anniversary of me broadcasting the African History Network show. First broadcasted March 10th, 2010. My first guest was Dr. Leonard Jeffries, who we had, one of my teachers who we had on the show April 4th. 2022, and this is our 6th year anniversary of me broadcasting our show here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF, first broadcasted April of 2016. Okay, I want to welcome back Asar Imhotep. Okay, so Brother Asar, you, at the One Africa Power and Unity Conference, your presentation is going to be on linguistics as a tool for ancestry memory, recovery, and intellectual warfare. So give us a synopsis of what you're going to talk about.
Yes. Well, the conference is titled, One Unity.
Yes.
And part of the purpose of the conference is to demonstrate the interconnections between African people as a foundation, and a basis from which to network and build a strong cultural and economic system that benefits the continent as well as the diaspora. So from the historical perspective, one of those means of establishing the interconnections between African people is through the language. And what I'll be doing is showing the audience how linguistics is used, historical comparative linguistics is used as a tool to recover the memory of a population of people around the world, but more specifically, of course, we'll be dealing with African people, and I'll be dealing with the ancient Egyptian and Bantu of Central Africa, but also how it can be used as a tool or a weapon, an instrument in intellectual warfare, which is being waged against African people for having the audacity to research and to tell their own story based off the evidence. And so what you have is all of these attacks, which tries to dislocate and separate, for example, the so-called sub-Saharan Africans from the ancient Egyptians.
Right. And
the language betrays all of those adversaries when they try to make that disconnect. And we can show that the Bantu speakers of Central Africa, in terms of language and culture, is closer than any of the groups who surround the ancient Egyptians, for example, the Berbers or the Semite or the European, for example, the Greeks or the Hittites or something to that nature, to the ancient Egyptians and any of those groups. So how is that the case? It is the case because the ancient Egyptians are related to the Bantu-speaking people. And, of course, the Central African area, Cameroon, Benin, Nigeria, Togo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Namibia, is the areas for which a lot of African Americans have their ancestry. So it has the ability to help one to reconstruct parts of the ancestral culture that gave birth to all of these present-day living communities, and it is used in order to wage that fight, which tries to separate those Africans who created ancient Egyptian civilization from those in Central Africa, and West Africa,
right?
In general.
Okay, so explain who the Bantu are, because you and I talked earlier today, and we were talking, for instance, we were talking about the film Black Panther, and isiXhosa, which is the language spoken in the film Black Panther, is a Bantu language, just like Kiswahili is a Bantu language. So explain, what is Bantu?
All right. Well, Bantu is the label of a language family, which extends typically from around the southern border of Nigeria, at the edge of Cameroon, all the way to, now Somalia in East Africa, all the way down to Tanzania or South Africa. And it's a linguistic group. It's not like a genetic group. It's not like a phenotypic group. It's a language group whose characteristics, as a result of the historical comparative method, can be shown to be have been inherited from what we call a proto language, the Proto Bantu, which some argue was on the border of Nigeria, Cameroon. There are others, although a minority opinion, who argue that they came from around the Great Lakes. But nevertheless, the proto-language has a certain amount of lexicon and features and cultural aspects that have diffused and evolved into the daughter languages, which we see today, like Chiluba, Kiswahili, Kikongo, Basa, isiZulu, isiXhosa, as you mentioned earlier, and others.
Okay. Now, if we look here very quickly, so a basic, I want your input on this here. I have a slide here from my presentations, and just a basic understanding of what Bantu is. And let me pull this up here. Okay, here we go. So Bantu is Bantu languages are a group of some 500 languages belonging to the Bantoid subgroup of the Benue Congo branch of the Niger Congo language family. The Bantu languages are spoken in a large area, including most of Africa, from southern Cameroon eastward to Kenya and southward to the southernmost tip of the continent. So you're going into Azania, Mawini, Mutapa, or South Africa, as you were talking about. 12 Bantu languages are spoken by more than 5 million people, including Rundi, Rwanda, Shona, isiXhosa, or what some people call Xhosa, and Amazulu or Zulu, and then Kiswahili, which is spoken by 5 million people as a mother tongue and some 30 million as a second language, is a Bantu lingua franca important in both commerce and literature. Is that pretty much accurate there? Anything you want to add to that or clarify?
Yes, for the time being, that is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of how the languages are currently grouped.
Right.
However, I would argue, and there are a few of us who argue this, that, for example, the ancient Egyptian should also be included in the Bantu languages.
Okay.
And
explain that, if you want to explain that.
Well, all right. So keep in mind, in 1963, there was an anthropologist by the name of Joseph Greenberg.
Joseph Greenberg.
Using a method.
Joseph Greenberg.
Yes.
Okay, Greenberg.
Joseph Greenberg.
Okay.
Who came up with a categorization schema using a method which we call the mass comparative method. I won't get into the details of it, but just know it's a different method than the historical comparative linguistic method.
Mass comparative.
And with that method,
spell that
mass comparative.
MASS.
MASS.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Dr. Edward Robinson talks about that. Yeah, but go ahead. Mass comparative.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it is from him that we get the language phylum groupings of Niger Congo, Nilo-Saharan, Afro Afro-Asiatic, and Khoisan.
Yeah.
Now, there are other linguists who disagree with those groupings.
Okay.
And, Theophilo Benga, who will also be presenting at the conference
Right.
in Detroit, although virtually, he came up with a grouping, what she calls Negro Egyptian.
Negro
Egyptian.
Negro Egyptian or Black Egyptian. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
This is what we're going to do, Asar. We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to pick up on Negro Egyptian, Black Egyptian. But also, I want you to, when we come back for the break, I want you to explain the connection between the Dogon and Mali, the Yoruba and Nigeria, and ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt as well. Okay, so stand by. We're coming up on a break. Everybody, listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. We're speaking with Asar Imhotep, who's a cultural theorist and Africana researcher. He'll be one of the presenters at the One Africa Power and Unity Conference taking place in Detroit, April 30th and May 1st at the DoubleTree Hotel. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like. Give us some stars if you like this broadcast. Shout out to everybody watching us on YouTube as well. I don't think Facebook notifies everybody when we're on live. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm making progress on shutting down the people who've been stealing money from us through Cash App with the fake Cash App accounts. But the other thing I have to figure out is notifications through Facebook. Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Who still needs to register for this conference? If you can't attend in person, there's a ticket where you can live stream both days of the conference, and you can live stream the presentations, everything. If you can't come to Detroit in person, that's fine. You can also go to hapifilm.com, but I posted the link here, and we'll get this up at our website also. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute, everybody. Stand by.
The Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And it didn't snow today in Detroit. That's a good thing. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have class number 1 of my 10-week online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We have class number 1 starting up Saturday, April 23rd 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all of that. Class is regularly $130, is on sale $80. And even after the course is over with, you still have full access to the course. You still go back and watch it as many times as you want to. 2 years from now, you'll still be able to go back and watch the entire course. Okay, so that's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then we have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes, because the second class that I teach is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Black Power, 1865 to 1968. That second class, we start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, and also deal with the Haitian Revolution. And we go throughout history, and we deal with what leads up to the Civil War taking place. We deal with Reconstruction, Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Great Migration, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement. Okay, so, and we have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes for $120. Okay, so on the line, we have Brother Asar Imhotep, who's a cultural theorist and Africana researcher. And he's going to be one of the African Center scholars presenting at the One Africa Power and Unity Conference, taking place Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st at the Doubletree Hotel here in Detroit. So, Asar, right before the break, you were talking about Negro Egyptians. Talk about that, and you were talking about Theophile Obenga.
Yes. In 1993, Theophile Obenga wrote a text in French on the relationship between ancient Egypt and quote unquote Black African languages, mainly dealing with his native language, Mbochi, and ancient Egyptian, with supporting evidence of other languages.
What was his native language? What was his native language?
Mbochi.
Mbochi, okay. And can you spell that for us? Can you spell that for the audience, please?
The Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it spelled a number of ways, but it's going to be M as in Mary, B as in boy, O as in orange, C as in car, H as in Harold, and then I as in iPod.
Okay.
So Mbochi.
Okay.
Right. And so when he analyzed, remember before I was saying that Joseph Greenberg created 4 language groups,
Mm-hmm.
Nilo-Saharan, Niger-Congo, Afro-Asiatic, and Khoisan. Well, Obenga comes back and looks at Joseph Greenberg's work, is not impressed, and he analyzed the data, and then he came up with Negro Egyptian, which includes all of the languages mentioned with the exception of Khoisan. He too separates Khoisan from Negro Egyptian, but he takes the Semitic languages out of Afro-Asiatic, gets rid of Afro-Asiatic, but includes all of that into Khoisan, and the Berber language is its own language family, according to Theophile Obenga. And so there was another linguist by the name of Jean-Claude Mboli who published a text also in French in 2010, The Origin of African Languages, and he furthers Dr. Obenga's work and further establishes the Negro Egyptian. But in his analysis, he came to discover that the Bantu languages are closer to the mother language, which gave birth to the daughter languages. And so this is why, and he was able to, just like Theophile Obenga did, show that the ancient Egyptian and the Bantu languages are closely related languages that belong to the same family. And so when we look at the ancient Egyptian and Bantu, there is a reason why, for example, this Egyptologist, this European Egyptologist by the name of Jean Spinara, made the argument that, you know, to understand ancient Egyptian religion and philosophy, it is best to consult the readings of Olga Tameli, in other words, the Dogon.
The Dogon,
and,
yes. Conversations with Olga Tameli.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. I remember that from college. Go ahead, man.
and Bantu philosophy.
Right.
And the reason why you would consult Bantu philosophy and Dogon philosophy is because it's essentially the same when you're talking about the ancient Egyptians. And so when you ask the other question about what is the relationship between the Dogon and of Mali and the Yoruba of Nigeria and the ancient Egyptians, they all descend from this ancestral culture, which we call Negro Egyptian, which I personally call China into for reasons beyond the scope of this conversation. But Negro Egyptian, nonetheless, is the mother culture and the mother tongue, and much of this philosophy, much of these thoughts and ideas already existed then, however old it was. And this is why you see these commonalities between the Dogon, the Yoruba, and the ancient Egyptian, as well as the Congo in Central Africa, and the Zulu in South Africa, etc.
Okay, now you said what was it? Was it Ichi? What was the name that you called it?
The language group I call is China Intu, meaning the Intu family.
Okay.
And the reason, and the simple reason, without too much explanation, is that, again, as I stated, the Bantu languages are closest to the mother tongue. The mother tongue is more so like a Bantu language. So that's why I call it the Intu languages. Like all of it is Intu. Whether you're talking about Dogon, whether you're talking about Yoruba, whether you're talking about ancient Egyptian or whatnot. The modern Bantu languages are just a type of Intu language.
Okay.
Just like Egyptian is a type of Intu language, but they all belong to the Intu universe, the family of Intu. So that's what China Intu.
Okay. Can you spell that for the audience? China Intu. Can you spell that for us, please?
Yes. It's going to be C-Y as in yellow, E as in Eric, N as in Nancy, A as in apple, and then you could put a dash.
Okay.
And then put N as in Nancy, T as in Terrence, U as in up.
U as in up. Okay.
So China Intu.
China Intu. Okay. Now you talked about Bantu being closer to the mother language. What is the mother language?
Theophile Bingham calls it Negro Egyptian.
Okay, Negro Egyptian.
And I call it China Intu.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And the reason why I call it China Intu as opposed to Negro Egyptian is that when we say Negro Egyptian, first of all, a lot of people get it confused with the Egyptian language. And people assume that the Egyptian language is the mother language of all the other languages, and that's not the case.
Okay.
And then secondly, this from a scientific perspective, Theophile Bingham was fighting against the racism that was inherent in the linguistic world and how they were trying to say that Caucasians and others coming out of Asia were the mothers and fathers of Egyptian civilization.
Right.
So he countered that, although his groupings is based on, a scientific linguistic evidence, the labeling was political. And so this is why it's Negro. He's a French speaker, so that's just it doesn't mean, it doesn't have the same connotation like here in the United States.
Right.
But it's just simply black.
Right.
And so we want to get out of the racial nomenclatures. And so I renamed the language family China Intu.
Okay.
So that, it has a basis more so in the African context more so than, Negro Egyptian.
Okay. We're coming up here on the break. You got like about 10 more minutes. About 10 more minutes.
Right.
Okay. So we'll hold you over on the break. Very quickly, you talked about Berber, and the term Berber can be very confusing. What is Berber? Who are the Berbers?
Well, the Berbers are a North African people who occupied territories stretching from Libya to Morocco.
Right.
And, they're kind of, been interbred for a number of, they've been there for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to like Shamaka Keita or whatnot, they hold markers, genetic markers, that is, that groundly place them in North Africa and not other places, although they've been admixed, for a long time.
Right.
So, but they speak a language that we call Berber. And, under Joseph Greenberg's classification, it would belong to the Afro-Asiatic family. But under Negro Egyptian, it would be its own language family.
Right. Now, when you read, I think it's in Golden Age of the Moor, and I have the book up right here, Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivor Van Sertima. It has a number of essays in here. Dr. Jose Clemente Bey, Runoko Rashidi, who's an ancestor now. We know he passed away August 2nd, 2021, and others, Dr. Wayne Chandler. They talk about how at one point the Arabs called the Moors Berbers. Okay. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I think at different times, the term Berber could mean like different people, so to speak. It's kind of a confusing term, Berbers. And a lot of these terms are designed to confuse people, like Moor. Moor becomes synonymous with Muslim. Muslim becomes synonymous with Arabs. The Moors get depicted in movies and things like this as Europeans, right? When the majority of the Moors were African people. The majority of them were, African people. So, okay, we'll pick this up on the other side of the break because I want to talk about the Dogon, Yoruba, and ancient Kemet. Stand by. All right, everybody, you listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. We're speaking with Asar Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Follow us here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. If you like this type of information also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research and stay on the air, keep broadcasting. We have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. And you can register for the online history classes that I teach. We have class number 1 starting up Saturday, April 23rd, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we have this here, and we have class number 1. I'll post the link here. You can register for it. It's on sale $80, regularly $130. So we get deep into the history. You can also use this with your children. I would say the content is PG-13. It's not overly graphic, and I don't do a lot of cursing, things like that. It's not crazy. It's a very visual class also. Stand by, back from break in 1 minute. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right, we're speaking with Asar Imhotep, who's a cultural theorist and Africana researcher. Okay, brother. Right before the break, I said when we come back, we want to talk about the Dogon of Mali and Burkina Faso and the Yoruba in Nigeria. I've come across information over the years that talks about how they were originally in ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, now Valley region of Africa. And then also there's a good article from face-to-faceafrica.com that deals with, it's called the Dogon tribe of Mali discovered this invisible star centuries before Galileo invented the telescope. And we know the Dogon are master astronomers. And according to their oral tradition, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. According to their oral tradition, they say they come from the Sirius, the Sirius star system, Sirius A, Sirius B star system. But the Dogon tribe possesses a rich oral history and knowledge of astronomy, and this dates as far back as 3,200 BC. According to their oral literature of the Dogon tribe, the star named Sirius A, the brightest star in the night sky with a bluish tinge, has an invisible companion star scientists have named Sirius B. This companion star is not only visible to the naked eye. This companion star is not only visible to the naked eye, but also completes a trip around Sirius A every 50 years. So talk about the relationship between the Dogon and the Yoruba and ancient Kemet.
Yes. Well, they are, different groups.
Yes.
That emerged out of the Green Sahara.
Okay. Before it became a desert, the Green Sahara, before it became a desert.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's a result of the monsoons that used to come all the way up to the edge of North Africa before the melting of the glaciers coming from the ice age in Europe. So that process dried up all the moisture. It sucked up all the moisture, and the monsoon rains coming out of the Indian Ocean no longer went all the way up into North Africa. Thus, the Sahara became a desert again, and it began pushing the inhabitants out. And so many of them went into, trying to find large river sources. So, of course, many of them went into the Nile Valley and, settled amongst the Nile, either in Sudan or into what we now call Egypt. Others, went further down into Chad and Nigeria, hitting Lake Chad or hitting the Niger River. And others, went further west, like the Mande people and the like. And so when you talk about the Dogon basically are a branch of like the Mande people, and they are, kind of close cousins with the Jagera. So like if you ever heard of the late now ancestor, Malodoma Some.
I met him. I met him years ago at Wayne State University. Water in Spirit. Water in Spirit. And then he and his wife had a follow-up book called We Have No Word for Sex also. Yes.
Exactly.
Patrice Malodoma Some.
Yes, and the spirit of intimacy was another one I heard that. So they all that's all kind of the same grouping of people, even though different languages, but they emerge out of the same ancestral culture. Okay. And so these groups of what we would call Negro Egyptian speakers, and many of the ideas that they have that are shared are ancestral. Some may be a result of interactions at very distant times, probably even before Pharaonic times during the Green Sahara period. But they are, all three different groups are really kind of known for different things. Okay. And, we know, of course, of the Dogon and they're religious, they're their astronomical aspects. But this is where it gets kind of confusing, because a lot of people, haven't read the Pale Fox.
Yeah.
And so when you read the Pale Fox, it doesn't necessarily say that they knew and understood a Sirius B. That was actually another author who made that argument, for which everybody is arguing. But the discussion about Sirius and the like comes from the Pale Fox.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't mention in the Pale Fox that that was anything really significant in terms of a companion star, and that it was Sirius B. And so, we have to be kind of careful with that, and the way that we word that, and make sure that we're citing the text correctly when it comes to that particular conversation. But Sirius, just a regular Sirius, is a very important
Sirius A
star, because during its heliacal rising,
mm-hmm.
it signals the coming of the monsoon rain.
Right.
You're
talking about Sirius A. Sirius A.
I'm sorry.
You talking about Sirius
Yeah,
A?
correct.
Yeah. So that'd be
correct.
That'd be the star in the constellation of Canis Major, the big dog. Canis Major, the big dog. Sirius A, the star in the east. That the wise man in the story, it said they followed the star in the east but went west. But that's another that's another conversation. All right, look, we're out of time here. Let people know how they can follow you on social media. Give people your website.
Yes, you can go to AsarImhotep.com, and I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and of course Facebook. So just type it in Asar Imhotep.
Okay,
should bring you up on all those platforms.
All right, brother. Well, look, I'll see you in Detroit, man, and thanks for coming on. Okay, you have a good night. Okay. All right, brother.
I appreciate you for having me.
All right, Hotep. All right, peace.
Hotep.
All right. ASARIMHOTEP, AsarImhotep.com. Okay, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a few more minutes. We're going to keep going. We're going to deal with what happened today at the press conference, dealing with the killing of Patrick Lyoya by Grand Rapids police officer. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for my online classes there. Also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Okay. Let's go to this next story here. And this is dealing with what happened today at the press conference, dealing with the killing of Patrick Lyoya. Okay, so we've been talking about this here on this show. He was Cameroon. It was a Congo refugee. Okay, Congo refugee, 26 years old, killed by Grand Rapids police officer, a white Grand Rapids police officer, April 4th. And it was a minor traffic stop regarding the officer said that he had the wrong license plate on his vehicle. Okay. And he ended up, the officer tried to use his taser on him when he's walking away. He tried to use his taser. He didn't give a warning and say, don't move or I'll tase you, or something like that. Patrick, there's a struggle over the taser, and the officer is on top of Patrick. Patrick's on the stomach, and the officer pulls out his gun, his handgun, and shoots Patrick in the back of the head, point blank range. So New York Times has this article here. Autopsy shows officer shot black man in back of head, family lawyers say. Patrick Lyoya, 26, was killed on April 4th by Grand Rapids police officer during a traffic stop. The police released videos of the shooting last week, drawing protests. So there was about 5 nights of protests over this. And I want to go to, let me see, which one is this here? I want to go to I want to pull up this piece from NBC News, and because they have an update and they have a clip of what happened at the press conference today also. So attorneys Ben Crump and Vin Johnson. Vin Johnson is known here in the Detroit area. They held a press conference along with the person who conducted the independent autopsy to give an update. So lawyers for the family of Patrick Lyoya, a black man shot dead by a white police officer in Grand Rapids, Michigan, said on Tuesday that a private autopsy showed he was fatally shot in the back of the head by the officer after a struggle during a traffic stop. At a news conference on Tuesday, Dr. Werner Spitz, the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy, said the bullet went through Patrick Lyoya's skull when he was shot on April 4th. The bullet went through his skull. Okay, now there's no question what killed this young man, Dr. Werner Spitz said. The pathologist, whose experience includes high-profile investigations such as the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said the only injury on Patrick Lyoya's body was the bullet wound. The only injury on Patrick Lyoya's body was the bullet wound. Reading which implies that Patrick didn't hit the officer. You know, he didn't have like skint knuckles, things like this. All right. And one of the things they pointed out here in the press conference today is that Patrick didn't try to hit the officer or anything like this. He was trying to get away. Okay. So we'll go to the clip here in just a minute. Reading the autopsy, attorney Benjamin Crump, who's an attorney for the family, said that Patrick Lyoya was conscious and aware that a gun was being held to his head, conscious and aware that a gun was being held to his head. The fragmentation at the entrance wound of Patrick's skull suggested that the firing of the gun was a contact shot, Mr. Crump said, meaning the gun was pressed to his head, meaning the gun was pressed to his head. Death was instantaneous when the gun was fired. Okay, Benjamin Crump said, that is now scientific evidence of this tragic killing and what his family believes was an execution, and what his family believes was an execution. Now, another attorney, Vin Johnson, who's known here in the Metro Detroit area, and Vin Johnson is a white attorney. Vin Johnson said that Patrick Lyoya's family wanted to seek justice through the court system. The Grand Rapids police did not immediately respond to requests for comment. In a statement on Tuesday, the Michigan State Police, who are conducting the investigation, said the shooting was still being, quote, we remain committed to conducting a thorough and complete investigation, which will be turned over to the Kent County prosecutor when complete. So Kent County is the Michigan county that Grand Rapids, Michigan is in. Okay. Now, the killing of Patrick Lyoya drew protests last week after the police released video showing the traffic stop that ended in his death and strained long-standing tensions with the police in Grand Rapids, a city of about 200,000 people where 18% of the residents are African American. Okay, now I want to go to the clip here. This deals with the press conference today.
An autopsy report has just been released for the unarmed black man who was shot and killed by an officer in Michigan. That autopsy was commissioned by the family of the victim, and video of the April 4th shooting appears to show Patrick Lyoya running from police, then being tackled by an officer there on your screen and struggling over his taser. NBC News' Shaquille Brewster is monitoring those developments for us. Shaq, what exactly did this autopsy find?
Yeah, Morgan, let me quickly set it up by saying that this is the autopsy that's commissioned by the family. This is not from the medical examiner. This is not the first autopsy that was done. But the autopsy commissioned by the family attorney showed that Patrick Lyoya was shot in the back of his head with that single shot by the Grand Rapids Police Department. That autopsy is still being presented right now. The forensic pathologist is still going through his findings, but the big headline from it is that they say that he was shot in the back of the head. All that we knew to this point was that he was shot in the head, Morgan.
And Shaq, I mean, how is the family responding? I know you made it clear that this is their autopsy. How are they responding to the video, to the outrage, to this autopsy?
Yeah, I spoke with them yesterday, and you heard from his parents saying that they were devastated, that they were heartbroken. His mother told me that she misses his presence and his voice. They were not at this press conference as this was being presented by the forensic pathologist. By the way, the pathologist that did the autopsy of MLK, that did the autopsy of JFK, that was also involved in Michael Jackson's autopsy. They were not there and present for this. And I believe we actually have some sound from that press conference. I want you to play a little bit of it, and it gives you a sense of why the family wasn't there for these details that were being announced.
Based on scientific evidence, we can confirm that Patrick Lyoya was shot in the back of his head. That is now scientific evidence of this tragic killing and what his family believes was an execution.
You heard Ben Crump use that word execution. That's the same word that the family used with me last week. The demands that they have right now, and this is consistent from my conversations with them even last week and what you've heard through the weekend, is they want the officer that fired that fatal shot. They want him publicly identified. They say that's important for their grieving process. They want that officer to then be fired and prosecuted. We do know that Patrick Lyoya, he will have his funeral service on Friday, Morgan.
Oh, just a sad situation all around. Shaquille Brewster for us. Shaq, thank you.
Okay, so that was a clip of today, and that's from NBC News. Okay, NBC News also has this article here. Independent autopsy confirms Patrick Lyoya was shot in back of head by Grand Rapids police. That's from April 19th, 2022. Okay. Now, I want to go to WXYZ. WXYZ broadcasted the press conference live. I'm going to share an excerpt of the press conference that happened today. Okay, so let's go to that. Just a second here. Let's get that queued up. All right. Okay. Let's turn the volume.
And I want to thank Sarah Lucrecio for helping us put all this together. But we want to start off with updates. We told the Lyoya family that we would be intentional and very intense in investigating every aspect of how this Grand Rapids police officer escalated a simple misdemeanor traffic stop into a deadly execution with him shooting an unarmed civilian in the back of his head. The autopsy findings from the independent autopsy performed by Dr. Spitz is going to get into very graphic details about just how horrific his killing was in a scientific manner. and we will have scientific evidence of not only the entry and the trajectory, but how the bullet traveled, where it ended up, which I think are very important to Attorney Johnson and I as we try to make good on our word to the family that we're going to investigate every aspect of this case and get to the truth. So in doing that, we believe it's important that you take everything in context. When you look at the video that was released by the Grand Rapids Police Department, and you don't have to take Ben Johnson's word for it, you don't have to take Ben Crump's word for it. Look at it with your own eyes. You would notice that the police officer initially is not traveling in the same direction of Patrick. So what we see is him make a U-turn to get behind Patrick. As my investigator, Cliff Jones, and I were reviewing the video over and over again, we both acknowledge that we have to investigate whether this is a classic DWB case, a driving while black case, that he profiled this black motorist and turned his car around, because when he turns the car around, what you see is Patrick's car is about a block and a half away from him. And then all of a sudden, you see the lights on, and you have to ask yourself, how did he know that Patrick tag registration wasn't valid when he's coming from the opposite direction? These are things that Attorney Johnson and I want to investigate intensely, because it goes to the mentality of that police officer, and it goes to the culture that was manifest in that police department, at least as it pertained to this particular officer in these instances. The second thing we certainly want to look at is the aspects, and Attorney Johnson is going to talk about this, of his body camera video. We want to investigate that thoroughly as well. And obviously, it is really going to be about use of force that we're going to talk about for the brunt of our time today with the autopsy and how Dr. Spitz arrived at his preliminary conclusions. And then certainly we will look at the aspects of how necessary this was when you look at the video and you hear the results of the autopsy. Just another senseless killing of an unarmed black person in America by the very individual who was supposed to protect him. And so we won't belabor the point. We're going to get to the autopsy findings after my great co-counsel talks to you about those things we promised to the Ioli family about investigating intensely every aspect. And he's going to introduce an incredible doctor who is very thorough in doing this independent autopsy. So I give you to a person you all know very well here in Detroit, Attorney Ben Johnson.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, everybody. It saddens me that we're here today in the very room where just a few years ago, pre-COVID, my firm and I celebrated with many folks in the legal community Detroit for our holiday party. And when I think about that night and think about coming in here today and what it is that we're having to talk about, it, to tell you the truth, makes me sick to my stomach. But we appreciate you being here. And I want to explain about the review process that Ben Crump just told you about. We don't have all the video. You know that. We have what you all have. So obviously doing this type of work for Ben and I for over 30 some years each, you review it, we see more and more each time. Mr. Crump, as his co-counsels, charged me with reviewing and hiring experts. And we're very fortunate because, as many of you in the room know, I've done this type of work for a long time, and I think we have access to and we know some of the foremost experts in a number of different areas. One of the experts, who I'm not going to name yet, but we've retained him. He's a police policies and procedure expert who testifies, who teaches police policies and procedures to the police all across the United States. And he also serves as an expert, sometimes on behalf of the plaintiff, sometimes on behalf of defense. And we've already retained him, and he has certainly shared with us his initial opinions. The two that I'm going to mention very briefly before I introduce, again, somebody that doesn't need to be introduced to this room, Dr. Werner Spitz, one of the foremost forensic pathologists in the world, is the body cam that many of you keep asking Ben and I about, and I want to respond directly. Folks, we haven't seen the body cam yet, but we're gonna. In a civil case, when we get up and filing, we will ask for the body cam. Mr. Crump and I are in the process of sending a letter, we call it a spoliation letter, to the city of Grand Rapids. They know what's coming. Keep all the evidence. And they will. And the Michigan State Police will as well, because they're going to look at the body cam. People ask us every day, right, Ben? They say, hey, tell us how the body cam could turn off in a struggle. And the answer is, again, knowing straight up, I haven't seen it yet. And part of my job, Mr. Crump's job, will be look at the body cam and actually touch it ourselves, okay? But I'm going to refer you all back, because a number of you were in the room with the chief of police on that Friday. Lauren, I see you, Rob Hicks. I saw you right on the film. And he admitted something to you that I hope you all got. In order to turn this body cam off, the button needs to be depressed for 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Tell me how, in a struggle, while he's on top of our client is face down on the ground, that body cam can be depressed right on that one spot for 3 seconds. And we also know later on, it gets turned back on. So I know what that suggests to me. You all are smart people. You can figure it out on your own. But again, that's one of the things we'll be looking at. Can I prove it with 100% certainty? The answer is no. But it's certainly important information that we now know since we've reviewed this material over and over again. Next, Mr. Crump has asked me, told me, in this case, in every civil case, ladies and gentlemen, this is called a wrongful death, police misconduct, excessive force, civil rights, call it whatever you want. It goes by all those names and more. But in every single civil case like this, the burden of proof is on these two. And Ms. Hatchett and Maddie Sinkovich is in the back of the room. I want to thank them for being here, and their entire team, Liza Dodson and Maria Reyna, Danielle Aspen, thank you, Chris Desmond. So we have the burden of proof. So folks say, well, then haven't they done an autopsy? Answer, yes. The Kent County Medical Examiner has done an autopsy. And I'm here to tell you something that I think you know, I hope you know. They knew Patrick died that day the second they saw his body of a gunshot wound to the head. But it's not just the examination that Dr. Spitz will share with you about. They obviously also do a toxicology study where they run studies on the blood because they want to see whether there's alcohol, drugs, etc. in the system. Dr. Spitz did not do a toxicology exam because by the time, obviously, he was given access to Patrick's body, those days were long over, and I won't get more graphic than that. We don't have that report yet. We're in the process of asking for that report, and we'll see whether we get it or whether we get the excuse that they're only going to give it to the Michigan State Police. We'll update you about that later. But so why an independent autopsy? And the answer is we don't know for sure, other than we know Patrick died of a gunshot wound to the head. We know that that's going to be the conclusion of the Kent County Medical Examiner. But as you all may know, Patrick and his family have a funeral on Friday. So our opportunity to have our expert of our choosing to do an autopsy obviously closes pretty quickly. So when Ben Crump asked me, Ben, I don't want you just to hire one of the best forensic pathologists in the country. I want you hiring two. So I did. Didn't have to look very far. Dr. Werner Spitz is by far, I believe, the most foremost renowned forensic pathologist in our country. And by the way, believe it or not, guys, our world. And you'll hear that from other experts. We also hired Dr. Michael Baden, B as in boy, A-D-E-N. Many of you know Dr. Baden's name as well. Much like Dr. Spitz, Dr. Baden has been all over in the biggest cases that I'll share with you a couple about from Dr. Spitz. Dr. Michael Baden is from New York, and Dr. Baden agreed with me and Ben that when Dr. Spitz said he was available to do the independent autopsy, no reason for Dr. Baden to come to Michigan to do the same thing to Dr. Werner Spitz, who's probably done more autopsies than Dr. Baden. But again, Dr. Baden's done a lot too. So we've had two of those folks already involved in this case because it is our burden of proof to a civil jury what killed Patrick. So a lot of folks don't get that in the background. They wonder why we do this. That's why. Dr. Spitz, as those of you that are from our area know, he has been doing this type of work for longer than actually I've been alive. And I've had the pleasure of using Dr. Spitz as an expert in these types of cases and others. I've had the displeasure of having him be the expert on the other side. So obviously, I want him on my team. Dr. Spitz was, as many of you know, was involved in the investigation of President Kennedy, of Martin Luther King, in jumping forward into the more of the recent past in the O.J. Simpson criminal case, Casey Anthony criminal case, Michael Jackson, I believe, criminal and civil case, I believe, and many, many, many more. Dr. Spitz is board certified in not just forensic pathology, you all know, I hope. Forensic pathology is the study of exactly how someone dies, if you will, but especially by trauma. He's also board certified in other areas that will become more important as part of the civil case. So when we called up Dr. Spitz last week, we retained him, and thanks to Diana Lucky, his assistant, he went to Grand Rapids and did an independent autopsy at the Gillespie Funeral Home in Grand Rapids. And again, that's standard protocol for a situation like this. Dr. Spitz then did a preliminary investigation. He shared his initial thoughts with us. And even before it started, Ben Crump said, we need to share it so that everybody knows, because you all are calling, and more power to you. We appreciate, obviously, you want to know the science, and we brought you the scientists to talk about that. So Dr. Spitz has some drawings. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Crump. He brought a model to show you the significant part of his findings and why. And before we talk about that, you all know, because you've covered criminal cases like this, civil cases like this, this is said and done with the utmost respect for Patrick and his family. God forbid that any one of us in this room ever would have to listen to someone describe what Dr. Spitz asked him. So I just wanted to give a shout out, obviously, to our clients. And I turn it, thank you, Mr. Crump, back to Ben.
Thank you very much, Attorney Johnson. Before we have Dr. Spitz go into the details of his autopsy, we would put it in context. We want to show the video, if we could, Sarah.
On the table then.
Okay, thank you. And Ben, I think.
Yes, sir.
Can you turn up the volume and play the video for us, Laura? Oh, we don't have audio, okay. So if we just play the video, start from the beginning.
Obviously, the video taken by the passenger.
What we think is so very significant is at the point when he takes out his head, look where his head is at when he's shot. And this is going to line up with Dr. Spitz autopsy findings. Then I believe he has his hand on his Patrick's head. Patrick is a little bit away from him, head practically on the ground, and he then takes his gun and flips it on his head, as you will hear from Maafa, head turned to the right, to the left, with the right hand, and he shoots into his head, and the trajectory goes from the back to the right part of the brain. And we only wanted to show you the video. Hey, we don't have sound for you. Apologies, but you all have great technology. Go back and look at it as we look at it frame by frame, and you will see right the second, the millisecond, the nanosecond that he shoots him. He has his hand on his head, pushing it into the ground. He is in complete control of Patrick at that point. Both of his knees have him prone to the ground where he has control of him. And as Mr. Jones and Mr. Johnson and I were talking, common sense would tell you if you didn't have control, you would not remove your dominant hand. He feels in such control that he removes his dominant hand to take his gun out with ease, seems like, and then to put it in the back of Patrick's head. And so we're going to let Dr. Spitz go, and then at some point he's going to come to the podium and show you the model of the skull and the trajectory so that you can see very clearly what happened.
All right, we're going to pause it right there. Okay, you can check out the rest of that. That's from WXYZ Channel 7. But a lot of news outlets covered that and have it on their website as well. That's the autopsy press conference that took place today dealing with the police killing of Patrick Lyoya. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. And you can support the African History Network through Cash App and PayPal. And be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for my online classes. Class number 1 of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, starts up Saturday, April 23rd. If you've taken any of my online courses in the past, you get a 50% discount on these classes and on the bundle pack. So email me at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.